You need to stop betraying yourself. Not today, not tomorrow, not this week, not again and again. I want your word to mean something. I want you to be able to make a promise to yourself and keep the promise to yourself. And there's a few ways that people typically fail to maintain their intentions. We're going to break it down in this video. Got a wonderful question that we're going to break down, and there's many lanes of exploration, but let's stay with just three for now. The difference between discipline and devotion. They might sound similar, but the difference between motivating and sustaining that motivation from a disciplined approach towards self-promise as opposed to a devotional approach to self-promise. The second point that we'll cover is the shadow work aspect of shadow behaviors around addictions and vices and the common energetic pitfalls where the majority of our internal emotional currency tend to disappear. And the final avenue of exploration for this video, trying to do a lot in this video, is the difference between commitment via criticism and commitment via compassion or commitment via love. Three lanes of exploration: discipline and devotion, shadow work around addiction and vice, and also then a final wrap up on criticism versus love being the driving forces, and also the boundarying forces and the self-policing or self-guiding forces, again depending on which side of the spectrum you want to work with, and ultimately a nuanced perspective that you can use multiple fuel sources and multiple motivational methods depending upon the season in your life. If you're somebody who already, like today's questioner, I'll bring this up on the screen just now, you can see it there, who said, how do I stick to a commitment daily? I'm finding my lack of commitment flooding into a lot of areas in my life. Luckily not my romantic relationships, but how do you stick to it without relapse? If you can relate to this question, you're someone who is very much a normal person. I've been there, I am there, I fall into this as well. Commitments are easy to say but difficult to follow through if you've yet to go to a certain level in your inner work process. The main thing that I see men especially getting tripped up with is that they go with discipline and they haven't yet unlocked the devotional mindset. The women that I've worked with, they seem to be able to get into devotion much easier, devoting to a partner, devoting to a child, devoting to God, devoting to a higher calling. Men, when they hear these words, they get a sense that this is an aspirational way of relating to their own promises to themselves, but they don't yet have the energetic foundation to be able to tie the knots together. They're used to maintaining discipline with the gym, with their finances, with their career, with maybe things like sobriety or staying off of adult websites. They have the disciplined approach of white-knuckling their way through the things that are really taking the energy, that are really about to threaten them, and there's a violence and a conflict and a warring dynamic. Many women don't experience this as baseline reality. Some women who've been through trauma, they do experience the life is a fight metaphor, life is a battle metaphor. But actually they tend to experience in the unconscious level more of life is a threat, life is unsafe, more of the, life's happening to you rather than I need to happen against life. Again, stereotyped. Most men that I work with, however, they struggle to get into the devotional mindset with their own word and their own self-commitments because they can't yet see the bridge between the two. Think about it. What is the difference between making a promise to yourself from a disciplined place versus a devotional place? Is there any energetic distinction? Do you feel different in your heart or in your chest or even in your lower body genital-based, that feels like life, that feels like libido and vitality? I'm talking to men and women here in this video, starting with the male perspective, because the word discipline is mainly something which men tend to latch onto, especially if they're trying to make a life change. You're trying to quit something, you're trying to start something new. You make a 30-day challenge, a 60-day challenge, a 100-day challenge, maybe a 1-year commitment. Here we are in April at the time of recording this video, and where did those New Year's resolutions go? Well, my New Year's resolutions very much got followed through. If you've never seen me before, I'm very much somebody who's pretty good at making commitments and sticking to them, not to brag or flex, but people genuinely won't have seen me before. I'm 6 years sober, unbroken sobriety, no drink, no drugs. I'm 5 years on the retention pathway of not being on adult websites and not releasing as well. Topic for another video, I've talked about it before, but 5 years on that devotional practice. Notice I use the word devotional rather than discipline. That's how I frame things. And also I read and have read, well, at this stage, if you're seeing me for the first time and you don't know who I am, I've read an average of about 3 books per week for the last 66 months of my life, non-stop, which is maybe 250, 260 weeks, 260 weeks in a row. I've read 3 books per week, rereading some of these books, that counts within the number. That's what I've done. I've done all of this: sobriety, retention, massive, massive productivity, going to the gym 4 times a week, putting on muscle, financial success, all the things that I get to achieve. I haven't done it through discipline. I've done it through devotion. I'm really trying to emphasize the difference at the beginning. The way that I relate to my commitments as a man is the devotional pathway, because discipline falls short. For the first 5, 6, 7 years of me improving myself as an individual, I went with the self-discipline approach. It works for that earlier, fighty kind of consciousness. When the world is the battleground, you need to be disciplined like a soldier. But eventually, you go from warrior psychology to king psychology, or you go from huntress psychology to a true queen psychology if you're a woman. You move away from the struggle and the grind and the routine being the constraining and also motivating force, and you become devotional. Devotion for me as a man means tapping into the kingly principle and the fatherly principle. What do those words mean for you? A father is devoted to his family, maybe devoted to a cause, maybe devoted to a country, maybe devoted to a certain religious or spiritual set of values and moral and ethical principles. A woman who's likewise devoted to many of the same things, to family, to religion or spirituality, to a mission, to a cause, to creativity, to an inner daimonic force, that soul's voice, something within. Devotion is a much more reliable fuel source. There's much more power in devotion than discipline. You can be disciplined on a day-by-day practical basis. You can be disciplined with your routines. Maybe, this is a way to break it down. Over the last 6 years of my sobriety, I have been devoted to the sober path because, as I'll cover later in this video, it comes from a place of commitment via love rather than commitment via criticism. But on a day-by-day basis or a week-by-week basis, imagining I'm in a stage where I'm considering, does my sobriety actually matter that much to me? Maybe I can just have a drink here or there. There's a bit of discipline that comes in. It's almost like devotion is the father principle, but occasionally the father comes in and there's a hard boundary that needs to be placed, and that's where the discipline comes in, almost in a case-by-case, use-by-use, tool-like perspective. Discipline is the hammer, but who is the one that's wielding the hammer? That's the devotional man or woman. The hammer or the saw, they're the tools of discipline. And if you're wondering, well, why do I keep failing to honor my promises to myself? But all you're doing is focusing on the hammer or the saw, what you need to bash into place in your life, or what you need to aggressively cut away. No wonder you're failing to follow through for multiple months in a row. You're a stage removed from the heart of the matter, and that's you as an individual. The devotional heart, the devotional soul, devoting to something which is good for you. I'll be quite honest, I haven't had a moment in the last 6 years with sobriety in particular where I felt like I need to relapse. Because I had the moment, as I've spoken about in different videos on the channel, where I was in this hippie camp in Portugal, everyone was waking and baking around me, and my soul switched on and inflamed with the voice of reason, and the voice of pretty strong fatherly devotion. You are better than this, you are meant for more than this. And as soon as I heard that voice and it really came through in me, maybe it was a voice from above, maybe it was a voice from within, I don't truly know. I felt the depths of that devotion, and discipline hasn't been required. It's been different for different things in my life. For example, for my career pathway and my entrepreneurial success, I've got a long way to go, and I have disciplines and structures that I enact. For example, one basic discipline, again, the tool of discipline, to give you a practical example, my tool of discipline of having a weekly routine is that at this stage in my life, I have a split week between online time and offline time. On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and Thursday as well, I don't use social media. Don't use it at all. On Thursday, I'll open up to my clients and to my student community in the Shadow Work Library. We've got 113 members at time of recording. So on Thursdays, after 3 days of being completely unavailable and do my research, creating, restoring, going to the gym, spending time in nature, I then come back online. And I'll look after my small number of clients, and I'll look after my larger number of students, and then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I open up to the world, to Instagram and YouTube, and start doing more outbound things, and then I come back inbound again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then outbound. It's been like this for 2 or 3 years in various forms. Is that devotional, or is that a disciplined approach towards me getting what I want in life, to me doing something which is good for me in a business sense, of having the right time for creative, deep, immersive flow states. Those offline days, I read many books, I'll sometimes film many videos if I'm in a filming kind of energy. Is that disciplined or devoted? Well, it depends upon what's happening inside of me. The background understanding is that this is coming from a place of devotion. I am devoted to building not only a successful business, but fulfilling a much deeper mission of trying to do the most that I can to help the kinds of people that I'm here to help. And I devote my life to that on a week-by-week basis, and I have done for the last 5 years of building this inner work library. How do I read? What was it? 260 weeks, give or take, 66 months, 260 weeks, about 3 books per week. How do I do that every single week? 260 weeks, 3 books per week. It's mainly devotion which fuels me, because I don't think I would have been able to do this with the hammering myself into shape. It's Tuesday morning, I'm a little bit tired. I already read a whole book for 8 hours yesterday. I've got to bash myself into shape. It feels like a confrontation. It feels like an attack from the outside. If I'm feeling fragile or I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling sensitive, I had a really stressful week at work the previous week, and I could kind of do with just a break. If I'm soldiering my way through it, that might work for the short term. It could work for a sprint of 30, 60, 90 days. But if you're playing the long game, even within the conflict narrative, if you're waging a total war over multiple years or even multiple generations, you need to have a much deeper energetic balance and the devotional heart, staying true to the mission and letting the mission inform the soaring and the hammering. That's what gets me through it. And it doesn't feel like a fight. It feels like a natural arising. But then, of course, to bring in my own examples of what works for me and what might work for you. First, as we've said, shift from the discipline-first approach to devotion being the heart of the matter and discipline being the tool for the boundary making, for the cutting away. For example, discipline in my week is I don't pick up my phone and use Instagram Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Initially, maybe there was a discipline of coming off the apps, fixing the screen time, these kinds of things. That's true. That's a genuine thing I went through. But at this stage, because the discipline has been used, I've already hammered out the things that need to be hammered out. I've already sawed away the things that need to be sawed away. The structure's there. I've built the structure. I've built the limitations. I've built the rules. And I can commit to that structure because I'm fueled by the devotional reason to stay committed to that structure. I'm not making... This is actually key. You know what? Before we go to the next point about the shadow work, listen to this part. Don't commit yourself to a particular structure. Commit yourself to the cause behind the structure. Because what if, you know what? I'm going to say this. What if you're like me and you're opening up a group coaching program for the first time in your life? 3 months ago, this is what I was doing. And you've got back-end systems that you haven't quite tested. You're scaling in a way that you don't know if it will work. You've got new students coming in and they're joining in days when you're offline. Are you going to be rigidly committed to a structure of, I don't go online, I don't look at messages and email because now it's Tuesday, and I don't do that until Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Yes, if I was excessively committed to the structure itself, I would follow that disciplined routine. But because I'm committed to the cause, I understand that the rigidity doesn't serve either me or the new students coming into the program. So in that first month of opening up the Shadow Work Library, although I didn't respond to people, I took little moments where I'd be checking just that the systems were working. It's almost being the king in his castle, rather than going out and spending the night really checking the walls. Imagine you wake up in your chamber, you've got the torch, and you go out at 3 a.m. in the morning, and you walk down, ignore the guards. You know, you're going out, like, oh, I don't trust the guards to do their job. I'm just going to go and check the entire walls and the perimeter. Yep, that's all good. Yep, that one's good. And you spend 4 hours rigidly checking the structure. That's an anxious way of going about things. If the cause is a deeper cause, you can rest or exert depending upon the season. Maybe if you're in a moment, again, playing with this discipline mentality, where you think you might be under siege, it's probably good as a leader to go and check the boundaries and go and check the structures a little bit more often than usual, to spend more time on the old commitments. But maybe it's a time in life where actually the war's over, and it's time for rest, or it's time to spend that time going and checking a different part of your inner world, a different part of the business. For me, in this particular high energy season, I bend my boundaries just a little bit in a way that only I would know. Every now and again, I think there were a couple of emails in there where someone had an immediate problem with payment. And I'd say, you know what? Generally, I'm committed to the cause of me being offline so I can do my best work, so I can help more people. But in this particular instance, that email takes 2 minutes. Doesn't need to wait until Friday. That person will get a valuable experience if I respond to them now. Little bit of flexibility. Little bit of flexibility. I'm committed to the cause, not to the structure itself, not to that temporary structure. And if you're committed to the cause, you can change the structure depending upon your life circumstances. And this is something actually that prevents overcommitment to something which is no longer working for you. If you've ever made a commitment to either a romantic partner or a business endeavor and you don't know when to stop, you don't know when to quit, that's because you're committed to the cause. Well, you're not committed to the cause, you're committed to the structure rather than committed to the cause. Just pay attention, the difference in those energetics. Another thing that we need to talk about moving into the second half of the video here is the shadow work principle. One of the major reasons that even if you are committed to the cause, the heart of the devotional energies inside of you, you need to pay attention to the practical, major energetic leaks in your life. For most people, most individuals watching this video, it will be an addiction or a vice of some common variety. Drink, drugs, adult entertainment, scrolling on their phone. Those are 4 of the major ones, quite frankly. At this stage in life, I think scrolling on your phone or maybe chat GPTing your way through the world is probably one of the rising vices and shadow addictions of our time. You will lose emotional capital and that feeling of, what they call it, energetic trust with yourself, if even as you hold the structure and you're maintaining the cause, if you've got a massive hole in your defenses or a massive hole in your commitment because it's obvious that you actually don't care about your own word because you're scrolling for 6 hours today, you're drinking yet again. That's the tricky point that most people struggle to get out of. It's all very well and good, you might say, Jordan, it's all very well and good. You're making this commitment to a deeper cause, you've got this devotional heart, but practically, dude, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop scrolling, I can't stop chat GPTing my feelings away and trying to, therapeuticize myself without just sitting down and taking a few hours to reflect quietly in nature with my own journal. I'm looking for shortcuts, I'm looking for quick fixes. Why am I doing this? That's the big energetic leak. What I want you to do is do a bit of honest shadow work. And for me, as I teach in my Shadow Work Library group coaching community, I teach this theme every single week. You can see link down in the description if you want to learn more about that. There's a difference between the shadow behavior and the shadow entity. The shadow behavior is the symptomatic expression of whatever the particular vice or addiction is. Let's go with scrolling, for example. The shadow behavior is scrolling too long on your phone. But what is the shadow entity? Another word, what is the part which is responsible for the scrolling? For many people, it might be an inner child part or an inner adolescent part. There's a teenager within, perhaps, that is stuck scrolling the phone to disconnect from an environment they don't want to be in. That's where your next step might be. It's all very well and good committing to a particular thing. You make a promise to yourself to not scroll anymore, but that will be undermined if you've got a part or a shadow entity which has a different agenda based on a different series of presumptions and old emotional baggages. Practically, I've covered this topic many times on the channel. Again, it's something we talk about on a week-by-week basis in the Shadow Work Library. I've got an entire curriculum that will probably take you a year to work through with 36 books. That's linked in the description. You can see this work in detail for a shorthand version, a short summary of what you need to do just for this video. If you want to honor your word to yourself, you need to understand the stories that your major subpersonalities are looping and reinforcing beneath your conscious awareness. Who is making the promise? Is it the ego, the superego, the higher self, the lower self, a false self, a shadow part, an archetypal influence, God's voice, your soul's voice, your parents' voice? Who is making the promise? This is a more abstract aspect of the video. Are you making an authentic promise? Does that promise trickle down through the majority of your parts? And if it does, of those 20% or 30% of parts or subpersonalities that disagree with that promise, why do they disagree with that promise? You're pledging to the cause of social media mental health boundaries, but yet again you're finding yourself scrolling late at night. Who is responsible for that inner rebellion? Which part is undermining both the cause and the structure itself? That's for you to discover. You need to work through active imagination. You need to take the time with your journal. And ultimately, you need to be honest that you are a conflicted being. You can't go with the old overcommitment pattern, the old overly disciplined pattern of, I don't care how I feel. I don't care what's going on. I'm just going to go through with the structure. I'm just going to do it. Yes, that will work for 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year, maybe even multiple years. But eventually, if you've got a wounded inner child or an anxious inner teenager, or maybe a younger version of yourself in your early 20s or something that had a particularly traumatic experience and you're caught on an old traumatic coping pattern, you're going to keep stumbling because you're not fully committed. You haven't taken the time to retreat into your inner world and have a few honest dialogues with those older versions of yourself. Some honest somatic therapy, perhaps, of releasing some tension in your body. Literal constraints if you're caught around in a chest that's always hunched in like this. No wonder you can't be expansive to new opportunities. If you're always dreaming and looking up, no wonder you can't focus on things that are grounded on this earth and maintain a basic study routine. You're always flying, you're always dreaming, you're always imagining. You can't devote yourself to an hour of reading every day because you don't yet see the value in material limitation and basic, repetitive, eventually quite joyful material routines. The joy of waking up with a matcha, a tea, a coffee, a nice smoothie, and going to read for an hour first thing in the morning. You can't devote yourself to that cause if the majority of yourself isn't devoted to the cause, let alone the commitment of the particular 1 hour of reading a day. Most people that I work with will find that their major addictive patterns, the majority of drinking, drugging, going on adult websites, or scrolling too much on the phone, usually leads back to an inner child or inner adolescent part. It's not always the case. That's for you to discover, but it is something that you need to discover if you want to make this conversation around discipline and devotion actually become something which is integrated, rather than merely a YouTube video idea that dissipates over time. There are a few practical things I want to wrap up this video on, however. These are important practical steps and tips. Final points. There's a massive difference between commitment via criticism and commitment via love, or commitment via compassion. I'm going to go with compassion because it's more alliteration-friendly way of phrasing things. Commitment via criticism, commitment via compassion. Criticism feels like anger and self-punishment. It's often a lot of negative self-talk. If you break one of your own promises to yourself, you'll say things like, there I go again, or aren't I a piece of so-and-so, or I can't believe this, I never live up to anything, that kind of negative self-talk, a harsh inner critic. That's commitment via criticism. Commitment via compassion is very, very loving. And I was talking about this with one of my clients quite recently. It's phrases like, I get to do this, I want to do this is good for me. I didn't do it this time, but I'm going to do it next time. For me, in essence, the difference between commitment via criticism and commitment via compassion is a healthy father or healthy mother figure and an unhealthy, or opposite way around, right? Unhealthy parenting on the one side for criticism, healthy parenting for compassion on the other side. What did you experience when you were growing up? Honest question. What did you experience when you were growing up? Mainly, in the whole, when you screwed up, messed up, didn't do so well, did your parents reinforce your self-esteem via criticism or compassion? What did you learn to model within your own inner voice? Do you still repeat the voice of your angry father? Do you still repeat the voice of your punishing mother? Or if you had a positive childhood, and let's be realistic, most people who are watching video like this had at least one parental figure that was probably more critical, maybe one that was more compassionate, one that was more critical, maybe both were compassionate. Very unlikely you go this deep into a video like this and you had both parents being hyper-compassionate, or maybe you're a rare exception that both parents were hyper-compassionate, but they were too compassionate and you somehow brought up the contrasting role of, that can't be right, I'm going to be the critical one because surely something must be wrong. Maybe they were overly compassionate in a fake and overly indulgent way. That could be your example. Most people, however, will usually repeat and reintegrate and then reinforce and then congeal and solidify into an overly critical narrative of self-motivation because they are merely repeating the stories that they heard from their parents, or even the unspoken messages. The punishing looks, the folded arms, the withdrawal, the avoidance, a parent not speaking to you. You did badly on a test, they shrug their shoulders, shut the door, go back to watching TV. You didn't do the homework in a certain way again. They leave for days, maybe a divorce situation, whatever it might be. Those are old stories which are often running in the background of people who overly commit to the criticism-based approach. And I will tell you once again, if you understand the difference between discipline and devotion, commitment via criticism and commitment via compassion, you have got a brand new opportunity to make some significant improvements and significantly heal some of the old, broken, and outdated parts of yourself. I will re-emphasize my personal story, my 6 years of sobriety, my 5 years of retention, the 5.5 years of building this library, building a business, living the life that I enjoy living. It is 80%, if not 85% devotional, and I go through seasons of discipline. Seasons and structures of discipline being used as a tool, a hammer and a saw, but I identify primarily with devotion and compassion. It wasn't always this way. I used to be very hard on myself. Things that I can't say on a monetizable YouTube video. Very, very strong, English slang kind of language that I'd criticize myself with. I had it for years. The first photo that I took of myself when I was 16, I got into bodybuilding for the first time. I decided to lose all of this chubby weight. I can't even say the word because I think I'll get demonetized. I had a photo of myself in my bedroom as a 16-year-old there, shirtless, chubby, out of shape, never trained, World of Warcraft kind of kid. Took a photo of myself, didn't like it, put it in a folder. I said, let's do this. And then a very strong swear, curse word, right? Let's do this, boom. The folder that I put my photo of myself in, that I tracked my body image in for the next 3 years, I believe. From 16 to 19, I took a front-facing photo and a side-facing photo. A photo like this, relaxed, and a photo like that, relaxed. For 3 years, every month on the 20th of each month. And they all went into that folder. Let's do this, you piece of so-and-so. Let's do this, you insert the bleep word. For 3 years I was in that, and that worked. That worked to get me disciplined. That commitment via criticism, it worked when I was a teenager. At an immature level of consciousness, but you're not a teenager anymore. You deserve a more devotional, loving, fatherly, or motherly inner voice, and that is something which you will then pass on to your children, and then you'll proliferate amongst your friends and community. Nothing is hidden. If you're very self-critical, you'll eventually become outer critical, and you'll eventually perpetuate unnecessary arguments and conflicts with friends and family and your romantic partner and your children as well. You do this for yourself, and you also do it for them. It's not your past anymore. You don't need to be this critical anymore. You will still get things done. I am a living testament to the fact that if you truly find a mission and a cause, and you truly understand the white-hot, pure motivating force of loving and committing and devoting to something worth committing to, my God, it's so easy compared to really struggling to hold it all together. I haven't had a single test on my sobriety for the last 6 years. Just haven't. Because I really knew what I was. And that's the deepest cause. It takes some reflection. It takes some significant time, being honest with yourself. I did a lot of fasting personally. Spent a lot of time without food, sometimes without water, reflecting, meditating, spiritual practice. They all add up over time. A practical final takeaway tip that I can give you is if you're in that bridging zone between discipline only, criticism only, and devotion and love, use your friends and community network as the bridge between. I have found great success in topping up my inner devotion with an outer commitment. For example, at the very start of the year, at about the second or third call within the Shadow Work Library community, we're doing these seminars, 90-minute seminars, every single Sunday. Imagine a group of 20 or so people coming together for this kind of conversation every single week. We had a conversation about screen addiction, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take off my hat, throw my hat over the fence, a bit of a exemplar leadership moment. These people are saying things, my students are trying to make commitments. I'm going to make my own commitment, something that's not working for me anymore. I committed to my students in public, public 20 people who have paid to be there, people who have some level of respect for me, they value what I say to whatever degree. I said I will not take my online phone, which is this phone. I will not take my online phone into the bedroom because I am aware that I have a vulnerability on my online days, Thursday through Sunday, especially on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, when I'm quite active on Instagram, to take my phone into the bedroom and then start scrolling in bed. I'll wake up from a nap or I'll wake up in the morning, I'm using it as an alarm clock. I realized that was a problem, so I made the commitment, and thankfully, Public pledges work well for me, so my offline phone is the only phone that goes into the bedroom. And it's worked for, at this stage, nearly 3 months. February, March, April. Yeah. 3 months I haven't done it. Because I publicly made a commitment. Later in that month, I realized I was checking my brokerage account and my various investments way too much. I had a week when, things were really getting quite interesting at the start of the year. Checking it too much. Said to my best friend, I need to stop doing this. I'm not going to crystallize any gains or losses until the end of March, until the end of the tax year. I need to stop doing this. I'm making a pledge to you. Moved the app away from my phone. Didn't check it for 2.5 months. Same with going on news websites. Same with stopping certain things, like going on certain... I've got a repeated history of this working for me. If you can't quite rely on yourself, or you can rely on yourself, but you'd like to boost up just a little bit, make a pledge and a commitment to someone who you love and someone whose respect you really value. For me, it's my students, my community. If I say something on a video here, that's a serious commitment for me. Your word will mean more when you value your word more and you're more discerning and careful about what you commit to. You stop this habit of lying all the time. Small white lies, small fragmented promises. They add up over time. They eat away and erode your self-confidence. It doesn't have to be this way forever. I find a hell of a lot of use in making commitments publicly. It really works for me. Didn't always work for me this way, but I seem to be in a season of life where it really works, in the same way that I've publicly committed that for the next 6 months I won't buy a single new book. From March 21st to September 21st, not one new book. And the reason is that I've got the 104 books I need for the self-integration school curriculum. I have a curriculum that I get to film, and I get to really immerse myself, not the first read, or the second read, or the YouTube version of the book, but the third read and the course curriculum version of the book. I get the next level of repetition and depth. With the 104 books, I believe are the best. They're going to be the backbone of the curriculum. If I can't enjoy those for just 6 months, with nothing else available to me, are they really the core curriculum that I want to teach for years? Maybe not, but at the very least, it will focus me in and help me to teach at the next level. Cutting off the student structure, boundary, discipline, the saw of cutting away new books, the hammer of setting up no more books, as no more Amazon orders. That's the structure. I'm committed to the structure, but I'm mainly committed to the cause of I want to learn as much as I can from the best possible resources of the last 120 years of holistic psychology. So these two things synergistically work together, and I've also backed it up with an external commitment to you and everyone watching this video that, the mud will be on my face if suddenly you see me with a massive stack of Amazon boxes behind me, like, hey, Jordan, those look a lot like, suspicious. It looks like Terry the Postman's been coming over, and I can see the spines creeping out. I can see those pages stumbling and fluttering all over the floor. I'd be embarrassed that I didn't keep my word to you and keep my word to me, and that's healthy shame. Final resonating point for the video. Once you've worked through the unhealthy shame of childhood, the traumatic conditions of maybe your family situation, you get access to healthy shame. And healthy shame has a very beneficial function. Sometimes it is very good to feel appropriately shameful for things which are shameful, with things that are beneath you, things that don't honor the glory of just how much you could do, the righteousness, the health, the beauty, the power, the grace. Healthy shame for things which are beneath you, like drinking or drugging or scrolling for 6 hours a day. Healthy shame. It's difficult to give this advice because most people who are watching this video have yet to clear out the unhealthy shame from the past, but when you are at the stage where you can really identify that this is a life-preserving, life-improving shame, you get to feel it in advance in the same way that you wouldn't want to make a promise and then break a promise to a friend or your romantic partner. There's a healthy shame function there, and it's very good. We can't consider that shame is all bad and that guilt is all bad. There are reasons to these things in the same way that anger is not all bad, sadness is not bad. You get the idea. That is everything I can say here. Quick recap before you go on your way. Discipline versus devotion. Shift yourself more towards devotion. Commitment via criticism to commitment via compassion. Shift yourself more towards compassion. If you're scared that you're not going to get things done, go and do some shadow work. Talk to the scared part of you that believes, I'm not going to get anything done if I'm kind to myself. Why? Well, maybe a parental figure wasn't that kind to you, and the way you got all your homework done, or the schoolwork, or the chores, was by criticism. It's probably just a parental figure. In most cases, it's a parental figure that's running as an echo inside your mind, and it's just that anxiety that's on loop, or maybe a societal narrative. Do some shadow work there. And finally, if you really want to add that extra practical bonus tip, make a commitment based on your inner commitment to the cause, based on your commitment to a structure. Strengthen that from a third angle, an extra little buttressing of your own commitments to a friend, a loved one, or someone whose respect you actually value. And when your word means a lot to you and your word means a lot to them, you've got a winning strategy. I hope this video has helped. If you've enjoyed what I've talked about here, you'll probably enjoy this video on the screen, and you'll also enjoy our conversations in the Shadow Work library down below. Conversations like this, me and you. You can ask me these kinds of questions. We'll talk about it. But I'll see you over here. I'll see you down there.